Colts at Titans, Thursday night NFL. Marco, who do you like and why?
Well, I'm going to have a slight lean to the Indianapolis Colts here. You got to pick your poison. You've got Tennessee that's lost 5 straight. You got the Indy Colts, believe it or not, have lost 4 of their last 5. But if you dig deeper into these games, Indianapolis, 12 turnovers in the last 3 games, 11 of them by Peyton, by interceptions. I don't see that happening. And even with the way they've played, as bad as they've played, they've managed, except the San Diego game, to make comebacks in the games because of their offense and Peyton. And Tennessee's just having trouble scoring.
All right, so what I'm hearing is the Colts, the short-term results are being overcompensated for, and thus it's a simple, slight value play for you. People are thinking too short-term on the Colts, thus there's value on the Colts.
There is. I mean, I can tell you that come Thursday, the Colts are going to be the popular side because people just, they're not going to abandon Peyton, and Tennessee's playing so bad.
Well, I would say if Indy were playing a good, the Colts, if Indy was playing, or if Indy were playing the Pats again. Now that line was what, 3.5 a couple weeks ago? That line's what, 6.5 today, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're going in opposite directions.
And the Pats are getting the money.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is Tennessee looks worse than Indy. So if you can both kind of say, well, Peyton's going to turn it around and be fading even a worse team in the last 4 or 5 weeks, then I think it's a lot easier to believe in Peyton than if you had if the Colts were going to Pittsburgh or something else. 2
points with Tennessee. As I said, they've only scored 6 points in their last 2 games. They've played Jacksonville and Houston in the last 2 games. Those are not defensive juggernauts by any means. One of those.
So you're saying not only, and this is what we call going inside the box score, you're saying not only do you look at the fact that Tennessee hasn't really been scoring, but they've been playing teams they should be scoring against.
They should. Now, I'll go back 2 weeks. They did play with a third-string quarterback 2 weeks ago, so you can dismiss that one. But last week with Kerry Collins back, 6 points.
From guys who actually watched the film of this are telling me he looked horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been almost, over a calendar year since he was benched. And, I mean, this guy was old, back 2 years ago when they had the good year and stepped on the terrible towel. I don't know how many of you guys know
that's the curse. That's what did him in.
Well, it's really funny. I had just met my wife. It was the first time she went back to Ohio with me, which was an hour outside of Pittsburgh where I grew up. And on the channel,
culture shock for her.
On the Channel 4 News, they had people interviewed after Tennessee stepped on the towel, and they're going, it's like stepping on the baby Jesus. They were saying, and she's like, what are they talking about? But really, Tennessee hasn't done much since.
No, and another problem that's going on with Tennessee right now is, Jeff Fisher's been a coach there forever, but there are some rumblings that he may be losing this team. I mean, a lot of people did like Vince Young.
The owner seems to be disconnected with him, too, because he's a Vince Young guy, the owner.
So, we've seen how that plays out with what happened earlier in the year with Dallas and with Minnesota, how it looks like the team had quit. And then, so I'm going to go with Indianapolis, but it's not a real strong vote. Because the only reason for me is it's almost too automatic for me to take Peyton in this game. And I don't like to take what I call automatic type plays.
Because if it's too obvious for you, there might be a trap in there. Now let's dig a little deeper into Collins, because it's too easy to say, okay, if you would have told me last year mid-year when Tennessee had that bad start, if you would have told me Collins or Vince Young, I would have said Collins. This is a savvy veteran, great year last year.
I would have agreed with you.
But from what you've seen, has there been a major change in Collins, either through the injuries or his age, where he's not that same quarterback right now?
I would say he's probably 75 or 80% of the quarterback he was 2 years ago.
So you saw a real drop-off. Now let's talk about the Colts and how historic this losing has been for them. In Manning's entire career, they've lost 3 straight games only 7 times. So this is historic stuff. Not to mention a team that's made the playoffs, every year, I think since 2001. They're in a different situation right now. Now, the question is the lack of Tony Dungy, is maybe Dungy not getting the credit in hindsight that he deserves? Because it was always like, well, Dungy wasn't super popular at Tampa Bay, and then the year after he's gone, Caldwell gets him, 13 or 14 and 0, whatever it ended up being. And then the question becomes, Bill Simmons has the theory that whenever you lose a coach, it's the second and the third year that you really see it the most, that they kind of run on momentum that first year. Do you think maybe this is the first time recently without Dungy their back's against the wall, and maybe Caldwell's not up for it?
Well, you're always going to take a look at the top and point to Caldwell, but really, if you look at this Indianapolis team, there's two glaring problems. They've had a ton of injuries this year that's hurt the offense, and they've had no running game at all. And I don't care how good
couldn't you have said the same thing about Indy for the last 5 years?
With no running game, they still had a minimal running game. I mean, this year they've got nothing. And Peyton just can't go back there and throw the ball 40, 50 times a game.
How are you looking at the short week? Every Thursday, we got to remember to overtly consider this is an NFL team that's traveling, the Colts in this case, on a very short week.
The road team's always at a disadvantage, but this is the least disadvantage that you can have because they're playing a division rival. They play that team twice a year. So preparation time, you pretty much already know your opponent, so that's going to help in your game planning. But it's still, a disadvantage, but not as severe if you were playing somebody you never play.
All right. So before you give your projection, let's assume you think the Colts are not fundamentally super flawed. Clearly they're flawed somewhat, but super flawed maybe. It will be a new term. Colts are 7-0-1 on Thursday. So they're familiar. And again, even though there's a new coach, relatively new, the system's in place. And they're 10-3-1 on the road. They travel well. They play well in these quirky Thursday games. If you don't believe there's something fundamentally wrong with the Colts, I think the Colts are the play. If you think there is, it's probably a pass because I don't like this Tennessee team at all. What's your projection?
Well, I've got it 27-23 Indianapolis, which, basically the line right now is at 3.5. So if we get to 4, I don't think there's any value. At 3.5, I'm still going to look to Indianapolis.
As a lean.
As a lean.
All right, I'm going to give an opinion here. I'm going to make this simple. I like simple stuff. I think that if you have a complicated mind and you can eliminate all the complication and get down to simplicity as a handicapper, that's great. I think I can remember years ago, back when Humphreys was the Chargers quarterback, and I just I was handicapping really deep at that point, and I really loved the Chargers, and they were undervalued, I thought, the whole year. I think I bet them every week, and if I remember, they went 10-3 whenever I was betting them. I think sometimes the team's undervalued, you play them, you're getting a couple points because they're undervalued. Sometimes it's that simple. This is a series these teams play twice a year, same system in Indy as we talked about, same coach in Tennessee for a long time. They've gone under 9 of 10 times. So to me, I'm just leaning under. Unless you give me a reason not to, and especially because we're talking Collins down, these teams match up in a way that goes under. Why not? Unless the line's been hugely adjusted, and I'm looking at 46, 46 with Collins?
Yeah.
I like in a team that's hardly scored on offense.
Well, you still have that, when people think of Indianapolis, they think of high scoring. They were in a high scoring game last week with Dallas, so that's where you're getting the number at.
I like the under.
Okay.
All right, now it's your turn to continue the conversation in the comment section with Marco and me. And next up, we're going to be talking, a last college football game before the bowl season, Navy versus Army.